Imagine being kicked out of your home at 18 by the people who were supposed to love and protect you. That was my reality. My parents, Thomas and Elaine Emerson, left me over something so small it still baffles me. I had nowhere to go, no one to rely on, and suddenly, the world felt cold and unforgiving. I had to figure out everything on my own, finding a place to live, juggling part-time jobs, and finishing college. Every day was a test of endurance, of patience, and of believing in myself when it felt like no one else did. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wishing they would change their minds, wishing they would remember I existed. But those nights also taught me something important. I had the power to survive and even thrive without them. Slowly, I built a life that I could be proud of. I worked hard, made smart choices, and refused to let their abandonment define me. Years passed, and I grew into a confident woman, successful in my career and strong in my personal life. I found love in Landon, a man who saw me for who I truly was and stood by my side in ways my parents never did. Together, we built a life full of laughter, support, and dreams coming true. Then came the day of my engagement party. I was excited to celebrate with friends, family, and the people who truly cared about me. The atmosphere was perfect, filled with happiness and hope. And just as I was greeting guests, I saw them, my parents, Thomas and Elaine, walking in like nothing had ever happened. The shock hit me instantly. All the years of pain, struggle, and independence flashed in my mind. I took a deep breath and reminded myself of everything I had accomplished on my own. They were here now, but it was clear that they had missed the entire journey, the life I had built without them. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. And then they showed up at my engagement party. The day of my engagement to Landon Hayes felt like a dream. Landon was everything I had ever hoped for, kind, ambitious, and completely supportive. As I walked through the room greeting our friends and family, I noticed how calm and confident I felt. Years of struggle had taught me to hold my head high, and today, I carried that confidence like armor. Just as I was chatting with a few close friends, my eyes caught a familiar face in the doorway. My parents, Thomas and Elaine, were standing there, awkwardly smiling, trying to look like they belonged. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe they had the nerve to come after all this time. The audacity of them showing up after abandoning me for so many years left me speechless for a moment. As I looked at them, memories I had buried came rushing back. I remembered sleeping on a friend's couch for months, moving from one small apartment to another just to make ends meet. I recalled working long shifts at minimum wage jobs, trying to save enough to pay for school, while feeling completely alone. Those nights I cried silently, wondering if my parents even remembered I existed, now felt like a lifetime ago. Seeing them there, pretending to care, stirred up a mix of emotions, anger, disbelief, and a strange sense of calm. I realized how far I had come and how little they had contributed to the person I had become. I could see them trying to find a way to join the conversation, trying to insert themselves into a life they had ignored for years. I straightened my posture and continued welcoming guests, refusing to let their presence ruin my moment. Yet inside, the shock lingered. I had grown so much without them, and now they were trying to step back into my life as if nothing had happened. It was hard not to feel the sting of betrayal all over again, but I reminded myself that their absence had shaped my strength. And in that moment, I silently thought, I can't believe they had the nerve to come. As my parents moved closer, trying to make small talk, I felt a wave of anger mixed with disbelief. How could they act so normal after abandoning me for years? They smiled awkwardly, asking questions about my life as if they had been part of it all along. My heart tightened, but I refused to show it. Guests nearby started whispering, sensing the tension. My friends exchanged concerned looks, clearly noticing the strain between me and my parents. I could feel their curiosity, and I knew everyone was waiting to see how I would react. Inside, I was replaying all the years they had missed, the birthdays they ignored, the graduations they skipped, the countless nights I had cried alone. I remembered every disappointment, every moment I had hoped they would reach out but never did. They had never apologized, never acknowledged the pain they caused, and yet here they were, acting as if everything was fine. The betrayal burned in my chest, a reminder of how deeply they had hurt me. But I also realized something important: giving them the satisfaction of seeing me upset would only reward their arrogance. I decided to stay composed, to control my emotions, and to not let their presence take away my joy. I smiled politely, answered their questions calmly, and continued engaging with my guests. Even as they tried to insert themselves into conversations, I held my ground. Every polite nod, every controlled word, was my silent way of showing them that I had grown without their help. They hadn't been part of my journey, and now they couldn't touch the life I had built. A subtle thought of revenge crossed my mind, not in anger, not in confrontation, but in quiet strength. My life, my success, my happiness, those were the things they could never take from me. I didn't need to yell or argue. I didn't need to confront them openly. I just needed to keep shining, to let them see that their absence had not broken me. And so, I stayed composed, letting the silence speak louder than any words ever could. The engagement ceremony was everything I had dreamed of. Every detail had been carefully planned: flowers, decorations, the seating arrangement, even the playlist. I wanted the day to reflect not just my taste, but the life I had built on my own. It was a celebration of love, yes, but also a quiet statement of independence. As I moved through the room greeting guests, I noticed my parents hovering near the edges, their eyes scanning for ways to insert themselves. They started pointing out small details: the flowers don't match the tablecloths, or I think the seating arrangement is awkward. Their comments were subtle but sharp, revealing the controlling and manipulative traits I had known since childhood. They wanted to remind me that they thought they still had influence over me. I felt the old frustration rising, but I didn't let it show. I smiled politely, thanked them for their opinions, and continued directing the ceremony with calm authority. Every choice I had made, every decision I was proud of, had been accomplished without them. Scholarships I had earned through hard work, jobs I had held to pay for tuition and rent, and the countless obstacles I had overcome, all of it had shaped the woman standing here today. As the ceremony continued, I could see the discomfort on their faces. Guests whispered to each other, noticing the subtle tension but also noticing my grace and control. I could almost feel their envy. They had tried to control my life, yet here I was, successful, confident, and radiating happiness. The audience could sense the brewing payoff, the quiet but undeniable statement that I had outgrown them. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Every polite smile I offered, every confident step I took, was a reminder that their absence had not stopped me from achieving my dreams. In those moments, I felt a mix of pride and quiet satisfaction. This was my moment, fully mine, built on my own strength and determination. And while they tried to interfere, I stayed composed, letting my success and independence speak louder than any argument ever could. I kept moving through the room, greeting guests with a smile and engaging in conversations, fully in control of the event. My confidence was steady, and I focused on enjoying the day with the people who truly mattered to me. I didn't let my parents' presence steal my joy. But, of course, they tried. Thomas and Elaine moved from group to group, telling stories from my childhood. They twisted the past, making it seem like they had always been caring and involved, painting themselves as the supportive parents they never were. I could see through every word. Their attempts to rewrite history were obvious, and the more they spoke, the more ridiculous it looked. I stayed quiet, watching them, feeling a mix of disgust and superiority. Disgust because they had abandoned me when I needed them most, and superiority because I knew the truth: they had missed my struggles, my growth, and my successes. They had no claim to my life, no power over my achievements. Guests noticed the tension too. Some whispered, others exchanged looks, sensing that something deeper was happening. I could feel their curiosity and anticipation, and it made me realize just how powerful it was to remain composed. I didn't need to argue, confront, or defend myself. My silence and confidence were already speaking volumes. Every smile I gave my guests, every laugh I shared, was a reminder that my life had moved forward without them. While they tried to force themselves into my moment, I let my independence and strength shine. I didn't need to react to their manipulation. Instead, I let the truth of my life, my career, my love, my stability, do the talking. In that moment, I understood something important: revenge didn't have to be loud or aggressive. It could be quiet, dignified, and undeniable. By simply living well, I was proving everything they had tried to deny. Their presence could not shake me, and their pretenses would not dim the joy I had worked so hard to create. I held my head high, knowing I was in control, letting the day unfold exactly as I wanted, while they struggled to remain relevant in a life they had abandoned long ago. Later in the evening, I found a quiet moment with Landon, away from the crowd. I felt the weight of the day pressing on me, the sight of my parents, their fake smiles, and the stories they were twisting to look like they cared. I took a deep breath and shared everything with him: the nights I had spent struggling alone, the jobs I had worked just to survive, the way they had abandoned me at 18 without a second thought. Landon listened carefully, his eyes full of understanding. He didn't interrupt or judge. When I finished, he held my hand and said softly, "You don't need their approval, Marlo. They missed their chance a long time ago. What matters is the life you've built and the love we have together." His words felt like a shield around me, giving me strength I hadn't realized I still needed. In that moment, I felt the contrast clearly: parental neglect versus the support of someone who truly cared. Landon's love reminded me that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about the people who stand by you, who see your worth and help you rise, not tear you down. I realized then that my parents' presence at the party didn't have to affect me. I didn't need to react angrily or confront them. Their absence over the years had already spoken louder than anything they could say now. And my life, everything I had worked for, every success I had achieved, would be my ultimate response. I smiled at Landon, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. I didn't need to prove anything to them directly. I had already proven it in the quiet victories of my life: graduating, building a career, finding love, and creating a future that was completely mine. That night, I decided that my revenge would be subtle but undeniable. I would let my happiness, confidence, and achievement speak for themselves. They had abandoned me, and now, without even raising my voice, I was showing them that I had not only survived, but I had thrived. As the party went on, my parents continued trying to insert themselves into conversations. They laughed a little too loudly, told stories about my childhood, and tried to impress everyone with their supposed concern for me. But the more they tried, the clearer it became that no one was buying it. Guests were polite, but I could feel the shift in attention toward the life I had built. People started noticing the things my parents had ignored for years: my career success, the comfortable home Landon and I had created, and the thoughtful, kind man who stood by my side. Friends and family exchanged impressed glances, quietly acknowledging how far I had come. Every subtle compliment about my accomplishments felt like a small victory over the years of neglect I had endured. I watched my parents' expressions change. At first, they tried to maintain control, smiling and nodding as if they still mattered. But soon, shame and frustration began to show. Their manipulation wasn't working. No one seemed impressed by their attempts to claim a role in my life, and I could see them realizing, bit by bit, that their absence had cost them everything. I felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. It wasn't about embarrassing them or creating a scene, it was about letting the truth speak for itself. My life, my achievements, and my happiness were already the evidence of what they had missed. They couldn't rewrite history, and they couldn't steal the admiration and respect that my friends and loved ones had for me. Seeing their awkward attempts fail, I felt a mix of relief and triumph. All those years of struggle, all the nights I had spent worrying if I'd make it, had led to this moment, where my success shone brightly, unshaken by their presence. I didn't need to say anything. The audience, the guests, could see the truth clearly. I had survived, I had grown, and I had thrived without them. And in that quiet recognition, I felt the emotional climax of the night: justice, not through revenge or confrontation, but through the undeniable strength and independence I had built for myself. After dinner, I stood in front of everyone to give a short speech. I smiled politely and thanked all our guests for coming, including my parents, Thomas and Elaine. My voice was calm, composed, and steady, the way I had learned to be over the years. I spoke about the people who had supported me, the friends and family who had stood by my side, and the love I had found with Landon. Then, almost casually, I mentioned the challenges I had faced growing up, how I had learned to survive alone, work hard, and build a life without relying on anyone who had abandoned me. I didn't raise my voice or make accusations. I simply shared the truth in a way that was clear for everyone to hear. As I spoke, I watched my parents' expressions change. For the first time, they seemed to grasp the weight of their absence. The consequences of their decisions, the years they had missed, and the life I had built without them finally became undeniable. Their smiles faded, replaced by discomfort and shame. The guests shifted, sensing the subtle tension. I could feel the room responding to the honesty in my words. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but the message was stronger than any confrontation could have been. I had thrived without them, and they had no role in the success and happiness that surrounded me. Inside, I felt a quiet surge of satisfaction. This was my moment of subtle revenge, not through anger, not through humiliation, but by showing that my life, my choices, and my happiness were mine alone. Everything they had ignored, everything they had abandoned, had become my strength. By the time I finished, the room was filled with warm applause, but I could still see the realization in my parents' eyes. They had underestimated me, overlooked me, and abandoned me, and now the truth was impossible to deny. In that moment, I understood that real power didn't come from confrontation or punishment. It came from living fully, standing tall, and letting success and happiness be the answer to those who tried to break you. By the end of the evening, it was clear that my parents had run out of ways to insert themselves. Thomas and Elaine left the party quietly, their faces red with embarrassment. They tried to speak up a few times, but no one listened, and their attempts to gain sympathy fell flat. It was obvious to everyone that their presence had done nothing to change the story. They had missed too much of my life to matter now. After they left, my friends and Landon came to me with warm smiles and gentle words. They praised my composure, my patience, and the strength I had shown throughout the night. Hearing their support made me feel lighter, as if a weight I had carried for years had finally been lifted. I realized that those who truly mattered recognized my journey and my achievements, and that validation meant far more than any apology my parents could offer. As I looked around the room, I felt a deep sense of reflection. Betrayal is painful, but it isn't always about confrontation or revenge in the traditional sense. Sometimes it's about surviving the hurt, growing stronger, and thriving despite the people who tried to hold you back. My parents had abandoned me, yet here I was, successful, loved, and happy, showing that their absence had only made me more resilient. I felt empowered, knowing that I no longer needed to carry anger or resentment. The past was behind me, and I could focus on the future I was building with Landon. Every challenge I had faced alone had shaped me into the person I had become, and I was proud of that journey. That night, as I held Landon's hand and smiled at our friends, I felt a sense of closure. I had faced betrayal, endured it, and turned it into strength. My parents' departure was not a victory for them, it was a reminder that I had taken control of my life, and nothing from the past could undo that. I was ready to move forward, fully present in the love and life I had created, leaving resentment far behind. After the party was over and the last guests had left, I took a quiet moment to reflect on everything that had happened. I thought about the years of pain, the struggles I had faced alone, and the ways my parents' abandonment had shaped me. It wasn't easy to relive those memories, but I also recognized how much I had grown. Every challenge I had faced had made me stronger, more independent, and more confident in who I was. I realized that I didn't need to yell at them, confront them aggressively, or force an apology. Their absence over the years had already been a punishment, their choice to leave me had cost them seeing the person I became. They had missed my growth, my achievements, and my happiness, and that loss was theirs to bear, not mine. My revenge didn't require anger or drama, it was in the life I had built, the love I had found, and the confidence I carried every day. Landon stood beside me, holding my hand, and I felt a deep sense of gratitude. His support had been steady and unwavering, reminding me that family and love aren't always about blood, they are about the people who truly care for you and lift you up. I had surrounded myself with people who valued me, and that was worth far more than anything my parents could ever give. As I looked around our home, filled with reminders of hard work, achievements, and love, I felt proud of the life I had created. I didn't need anyone else's approval to know my worth. Every step of my journey had led me here, and it was a journey I had taken on my own terms. Sometimes, I thought, true revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about living well, showing strength, and proving to yourself that you can rise above betrayal and pain. And in that quiet reflection, I understood the truth fully. Sometimes the people who abandoned you realize your worth only when they can't reach it, and by then, it's too late.